It is beyond a huge honor. I'm at the Townie Meeting 2016 in Las Vegas. In my opinion, seriously, the three most famous hygienists on earth. I mean, you guys, you're crushing it on Hygiene Town, YouTube, social media, your own websites. I mean, if I ever see a hygienist talk or do anything, it's one of you three. And so it's just an honor to be here. So I just want to go around the table. I'll start with you because you're right next to me. I'll hand you the microphone. But I'm just going to ask you all the same question. Are you excited about in hygiene? What are you passionate about? What do you think the hygienist or dentist who has a hygienist working for him, what's got you excited? Why are you still enthused? What's hot and what's not in dental hygiene today? Andrew.
Well, my name's Andrew Johnston. I'm from Vancouver, Washington, which is right by Portland, Oregon. And
downstream from Mount St. Helens.
Down the stream,
Did you get a couple inches of ashes the last time she blew?
Well, I mean, I wasn't alive back then, but I mean, possibly. I mean, didn't want to say it, but maybe. Right now from dental hygiene, that gets me kind of excited is two things. One is restorative dentistry. I practice 1 day a week doing just nothing but restorations, so placing fillings. And that's really fun for me.
So you're a dental hygienist doing expanded functions in Portland, Oregon, where they have passed expanded functions. How many states can you do that in?
Well, I have a license in Oregon and Washington, so I can do it in both of the states. And I can do composites and amalgams in both states as well.
And they just passed that in Arizona. But the legislator passed that, but then they said, well, we have no place to trade him. So they went to their two dental schools and told them to set up a curriculum and training. But as soon as they train them, then we're going to have that in Arizona. So what's that like?
I think it's fantastic because, I think it answers a couple of the questions that are always like relevant in dentistry, right? Access to care. So you can work in the Medicaid clinics, Medicaid offices, and you can do more restorative work to get these people what they need. But the cool part about that as well is that you have a trained hygienist that's also giving good oral hygiene instruction during those restorative appointments as well. I know a lot of times, dentists are great, but they don't focus necessarily on the preventive part of it like we do. And so I feel that as we're placing a little DO filling in number T for Johnny over here, and we're educating mom and dad behind us and saying this is why they're getting a cavity because they're not doing this, this, and this, while we're placing the filling. It's just, it's something I'm passionate about, it's something I really love. And I've been doing it for several years and it's very fun. The state of Washington, though, you don't need to have an expanded permit. All hygienists can do it. As soon as you graduate and you take your boards, you can't have a license without being able to do it. So it's a little bit different than maybe Oregon, where you have to have an endorsement for it. The other thing I'm really kind of passionate about is getting maybe out of clinical. Not necessarily for me myself, because I do 50 hours of clinical a week pretty much. I love it. But giving people, especially hygienists, an opportunity to still be in the profession, still give the education to maybe other professionals as well, but maybe not wet finger dentistry, as I say.
So can I move you to Phoenix? Will I pay all your moving costs?
I would love it, but
seriously,
probably not.
Well, if you
I got a good thing going right now.
Well, if you ever want to live in Phoenix, Arizona, I would so headhunt any three of you out. I mean, I would. I know you're from Canada. You probably hate the United States. You're from New York. You probably think Phoenix rolls all their sidewalks at 5 o'clock. I'd do anything for you three. I think you guys are just amazing. So what do you say about this? Because I know in Arizona, to get hygienists to have expanded functions, they were talking about that when I got out of school in 87. So it's almost 30 years later before it passed. Mm-hmm. And every old dentist I know thought the minute they let you place fillings and crowns, the sovereign profession of dentistry would collapse and it would be over. Why do the old guys think that, and what do you think about that? I mean, and I don't even know if they do that where Linda and you are in New York. Is that the end of the world for dentistry?
Well, obviously not, since we've been doing it, I think, since the 70s in Washington. So, and I feel like it's a very vibrant state still with dentistry. We're not losing patients and no one's dying yet. So I think that the biggest maybe misconception, though, is that we're going to cause either more disease somehow, or we're not going to be able to learn how to place it. But I feel like fillings it's a very mechanical process, right? If it's an amalgam, you're gonna put your band on, you're gonna put your wedge in, you're gonna condense like you normally do, you're gonna burnish. It's the same steps over and over and over again. It's very, very easy, I feel, to place a filling, as long as you have the training and understand the anatomy and what to do if maybe that you didn't, close that contact. What are you going to do in those types of situations? Or how do you get a contact that's really tight and really hard? So, no, obviously it's not the end of the world. And I don't know. I think it's not that difficult to do.
So I know you're wondering who this Linda Douglas is, because I know you're thinking, is that Sade? I always, whenever I see you, I first think you're going to start singing Smooth Operator. But Linda, you're in Toronto, Canada. You're a hygienist. I think you're the most posting person, hygienist on hygienetown.com. I'm a huge fan of yours. We've published you many times. You're really one of my idols. I think you're a rock star of hygiene. I can't say enough the great things about you. What's got you passionate in hygiene, and when are you coming out with your next album?
This thing on? Okay.
Are you Sade? Start with that.
No, I'm not. We're almost neighbours, though.
Are you?
Well, we're both from London.
Oh, okay.
But yes, I'm really passionate about saliva and all its wonderful properties, and also saliva testing for oral and systemic disease, which I think is going to really grow in the profession.
Explain in detail. Is there a company you're working with?
No, but there's a company called that does the Salimat test for oral cancer. So if you see a suspicious lesion, you can test the saliva for the biomarkers for oral cancer.
So I've always noticed in 20 years of doing this that if they got thick, ropey saliva, they got a high decay rate. And if it's thin and watery, they got a lower decay rate. Is that too crude and rude, or do you think that's true?
That puts it in a nutshell. The more abundant watery saliva has a lot of minerals and buffers, and also enhances the self-cleansing mechanism. So that's all conducive to good oral health.
So when you touch saliva, like under the tongue, you put your glove finger on saliva and pull it up. How long should that string be? When that string gets too long, how long would it be before you said something's wrong here? You're out of whack.
Oh. I would say that there are studies on that, actually. There's a whole study on the length of the it's called the spin barkite, that stringy quality. And I don't remember the exact lengths, but I would say if it's more than about 2 centimeters, that's too long.
Now, I'm an American. I've never heard of a centimeter or a meter.
Me. Let's say 1 inch.
1 inch. Okay. Now I hear I'm communicating with you. So you also you talk and write a lot about eating disorders.
Yes.
And you just what are your thoughts on eating disorders?
Well, what I've studied is a real eye-opener. Actually, 10 years ago, one of my patients said to me that her daughter's recovering from an eating disorder, and could I be vigilant for signs of a relapse? And I said, of course. And then I realized I didn't know that much, apart from erosion, which everyone knows about with bulimia. So I decided to do more research, because I wanted to find the more subtle early signs before the erosion manifests, because it takes about 6 months after onset of bulimia or purging anorexia for the erosion to manifest. And eating disorders have the highest mortality rate of all psychiatric illnesses.
That is true. That
yes.
is. And I'm in Phoenix, and Arizona has all the houses for addiction, alcohol, drugs, eating disorders, sexual addiction. They have all those places.
Yeah.
And I was surprised when I read that. It's something like what percent of anorexic nervosis actually will end up dying from their disease?
About 10% die within 10 years of onset.
Yeah, that's just so sad.
Yeah.
And here's a guy, I've been on a diet for almost all 53 years I've been alive, and here's someone that dies, and they would just not die if they just eat a sandwich. It's just the mind is an amazing thing. So so then how do you cancel diabetics? So let's say I just went in the bathroom and I just purged. So to get that out of their mouth, they're going to go run and brush. And now their teeth were softened from acid, and they're putting in toothpaste and abrasion.
Exactly.
It was the worst time to brush is after you soften your teeth with vomiting.
That's right.
So how do you counsel an anorexic that's still purging?
You can advise them to, well, first of all, you can make them a mouth guard that will to protect the teeth during purging. So, some clinicians do that, but not very often. But you can advise them to neutralize the acid by rinsing with a solution of baking soda and water. Teaspoon of baking soda in a glass of warm water. Or you can use actually Colgate enamel repair paste, neutralizes the acid really well. And MI paste.
Now,
My
talk
favorite.
about that. What is MI paste? Because that's you just see that posted so many
Yes.
times in hygiene.
Yeah.
So what is MI paste?
MI paste is for remineralization, and it's a treatment that you apply after brushing, and you leave it on for at least half an hour, or you can leave it overnight. And it's derived from milk protein. So it has casein phosphopeptides. Is that right?
As far as
Calcium phosphate, and yeah, that's it.
And who's making MI paste?
GC America.
Okay, GC America, and that's a big product now.
Yes.
So I venture to say you're talking to thousands of dentists right now that have never heard of it. So GC America, which stands for General Chemical, which is out of Japan.
Yes.
Even though they just moved their headquarters to Germany for tax purposes. But it's talk. When did this product come out, and why did they bring this MI paste to market?
This product's been around, I think, around 10 years, little over 10 years. And basically it's because we've been using fluoride for a long time in the profession, but fluoride alone, we haven't eliminated caries. Fluoride alone is not working, because if your saliva doesn't have the enough calcium and phosphate, then you cannot form fluorapatite. The fluoride is not going to work.
So it's got fluoride, and what else has it got in there?
It's got the, I can't remember the names off my top of my head. I think it's casein phosphopeptides and CAA. I'm sorry, I can't remember offhand.
So
it's basically
is this a
calcium.
toothpaste for the patient, or is
Yes,
it's a casein phosphopeptide and amorphous calcium phosphate.
that's it. Amorphous calcium.
okay?
phosphate.
And this is
Yes.
this is a B2C. This is a consumer product to be brushing their teeth with daily.
No, it's only available through dental offices, and it's a treatment that you apply after brushing and you leave it on.
And so this is something that you sell to the patient.
Yes,
So when they get done brushing their teeth, they put this on their teeth.
that's right.
And how do they put it on their teeth? Like through brushing?
No, you can. It will mostly stick to the brush and get wasted. So it has this quality, like how milk sticks to the side of a glass.
Mm-hmm.
It's made from milk protein, so it sticks to the teeth really well. And so you can apply it with your finger, or you can put it in a tray.
Why don't you guys get GC and you guys make an online CE course about these things?
That's a good idea.
Because we came out with the Dental Town app. We put up on so now they got these on their smartphone. This icon down here is CE, We put up 350 one-hour courses, and they've been viewed over 500,000 times.
That's amazing.
So you guys should build a course. You could do it at an hour each or all together, whatever. But all these things, like they don't know. And it's so much more, you know, the old day is I got to close down my office. I lose $5,000 of production. I got to fly from my town all the way to Kansas City, all that stuff. And now they can just sit there on their iPhone, and their wife is watching Beverly Hills Cop, and they're not really into it. So they just put on this deal and they listen to it, and you could be explaining to this.
Yeah.
I mean, it's really overtaking hands-on courses, and I think that would be a phenomenal course. Do you guys think you'd want to do that together or separately, or?
I think that would be super.
I'm good for whatever.
Yeah. Because I think we do on Dental Town, I feel embarrassed. We do way too many courses on root canals and filling, what I call drill, fill, and bill.
Yes.
And with my 4 kids and my grandkid, I don't want them to get root canals and implants.
Of
I want
course.
to prevent disease.
Yes.
And that's my office motto. I mean, I just want to have a dental office where I'd want my granddaughter to go.
Yes.
I mean, I don't want to go. I don't want my granddaughter going to where they're on economic incentives to do root plane curettage and put tetracycline chips under their gums, and I don't want them to go to a dental office where they have all these economic incentives to do crowns instead of fillings. I want my granddaughter to go where it would be the best dentistry for my granddaughter.
Yes.
And you guys should teach that. So what else has got you passionate?
Actually, I love everything about hygiene. I like taking care of people, and but my forte is the saliva and dry mouth management, which is really increasing.
Well, dry mouth is getting huge because
Yes.
every time they come out with a new prescription pill, there's one more grandma now that's going to live to be 112 that's not going to have any saliva.
Yes.
How do you deal with dry mouth now?
There are lots of options out there. When I first graduated, there was nothing really. We had to ask the pharmacist to compound saliva substitutes for us and dry mouth lozenges. But now there are so many over-the-counter products. Of course, everyone knows about biotin gel.
I think that's a big assumption.
Yes.
That many thousands of people, there's someone that doesn't know what biotin gel is.
Yeah, this is a saliva substitute gel, basically.
Biotin gel.
Yes. And it's a good saliva substitute. So the patients find that their mouth feels a lot more comfortable.
So is this a gel, a tablet?
It's a gel. It comes in a tube.
And they squirt it in their mouth?
Yes.
How often?
You can do it as many times as you need, really.
Because Daniel told me a
yeah.
Bud Light will do the same thing.
For 30 seconds while you're sipping it.
Eventually it will have the opposite effect.
So how last I heard 860 different prescriptions cause dry mouth.
Yes.
Is that about what you're hearing?
Yeah, and that number's growing all the time.
But see, I don't have to worry about that because I'm a man. We just drop dead. When I look at the data, it's basically 4.6% of American women will spend their last years of their life in a nursing home, and for every 100 women in a nursing home, there's only one man named Lucky. And so most likely I'll die of a heart attack in my kitchen. It'll be you who will be in the nursing home. I want to ask this question because I think the most under-addressed issue in America, and I assume it's the same for Canada, is that we spend our whole life fixing up mom and 6-month cleanings and everything's great. And then when she finally is sent to a nursing home, they average one new root surface cavity per month at their nursing home.
Oh.
So after grandma's been in there for 1 year, she has 12 cavities. And as a restorative dentist, they wheel her in there and you fix all those cavities and they bring her back for the 6-month cleaning and they're all back. And it's crazy. It's almost like she's being eaten alive by termites. What are your thoughts on root surface decay and nursing homes? And furthermore, I have gone into a dozen nursing homes in Phoenix, Arizona. I don't want to say their names. I don't want to get people in trouble. Where I've sat there and I've seen how they're brushed, and they take a brush, they dip it in the Dixie cup, they put a pea-sized toothpaste, they go ting 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 ting, then they tell her to spit in the cup, and they're done.
Yeah.
And that poor little girl is making about $11 an hour. She's a certified nurse, CRA, certified nurse, CNA, certified nurse assistant. She has 9 months of school. She makes $11 an hour, and she's got 22 people on her wing, and she's got to get them bathed, to the bathroom, to feed, to this and that, and she's not going to sit there and brush and floss 32 teeth. So what? How do you address that nightmare?
There are two things that come to mind immediately. One is xylitol. I think we should use more xylitol for seniors.
What brand? Because is it true that some xylitols are not high enough in concentration and others are better? What xylitol do you like?
I like the Spry products.
They're made by, is it Clear?
Yes.
XLEAR is the company.
XLEAR.
Clear, yeah.
XLEAR.com.
And there's a Canadian brand called Xyla. XYLA.
Okay, well, we're Americans down here, Linda. We're not going to be sponsoring these Canadian people. You know, those people that live upstairs in the loft, just looking down at crazy America, wondering what's going on with Trump and Hillary. It must be embarrassing being a neighbor to America. Do you ever look down at America and think, God, why couldn't I live north of Brazil or Germany or...
Well, I just think my American colleagues are very welcome to come to Canada if Trump becomes president.
So you think okay? So answer this specific question. My grandma is in a nursing home. I'm listening to you right now. I'm a hygienist. My grandma's in there. I see the bath. I see that she's going to get one new cavity a month. What would you recommend for her home care? That she should do a xylitol candy 3 times a day?
Yes.
Or what would you specifically recommend?
Yeah, I would say any exposure to xylitol 5 minutes 3 times a day, and it can be granulated in their drinks, or it can be a candy. That's fine. Any form that they can get it is fine. And the other thing is in Canada we have a product called Prevora. It's a chlorhexidine varnish that's been developed to prevent root caries. So it's been used a lot for seniors.
Okay, tell me if this is true or not. A lot of people like the Paradex, the chlorhexidine gluconate, because it's a sticky oil that sticks to your teeth and implants.
Yes.
And they think the Listerine, the alcohol-based, the chlorine dioxide is very, very short. They like the sticky chlorhexidine. Do you think that's true or false?
Yeah, I think that's true, that chlorhexidine has this quality that makes it more substantive.
And then I'm going to go to Daniel. Daniel, you're in New York City, and you have a big. It seems like when I read anything of you that you're doing, blogging, YouTubing, it's about HIV patients.
Usually.
Is that a big part of your practice?
I work in an FQHC, a federally qualified health center. It's called Count
Say it again. In a what?
A federally qualified health center. It's called Count Lord Medical Center, and we were one of the very first advocacy groups for HIV. So the roots of my clinic go back to the early 80s, and it was a community project that was originally established to get people into care, people who are in a crisis, people who are dying of AIDS, and eventually, it got more funding, and it eventually became a primary care clinic through the 90s. And around 2002 or 3, we moved into a very big building and became a fully established health center that included mental health, primary health, social health welfare.
And this is in New York City?
Yeah, right in Manhattan. And dental care, full general dentistry, suite of procedures.
And what percent of your patients are HIV?
90%.
90%.
Yeah. In total, we have 20,000 patients for the whole center, and the dental clinic sees about 9,000 of them.
So you do this this is your core competency.
Yes.
And most of us out there, we just have a dozen patients that are HIV positive, probably. So
probably more. They don't know.
Well, we'll talk about that. What percent do you think tell us?
It's hard to ballpark a percentage. We know who's in care. We know who's on, the antiviral regimens. But it's interesting that the people who are typically in care, the people who are medicated and leading healthy lives now, they're not the ones that are actually spreading the disease, because the ones who are spreading the disease are the ones who don't know they have it, because they have an extremely high viral load. They're very, very infectious, during unprotected sex. And those are the people that are not going to, take any precautions because, they have elevated risks of spreading the disease. They're the ones that are going to be the real vectors for it. And they're not going to be the ones that are going to tell you they're HIV positive, because either they don't know or they just haven't sought care and they're afraid to say it.
I just got back from lecturing in Johannesburg, South Africa, and South Africa has a 25% HIV positive rate.
Yeah.
Unbelievable.
Yeah, and a lot of that, it's very interesting to see the roots of HIV prevalence over there versus HIV prevalence over here, because over there, people will absolutely refuse to use any sort of contraceptive methods. There's no birth control because it's frowned upon by mostly the Catholic Church that really did a lot of missionary work there. They kind of squashed any sort of contraception. They didn't allow them to use condoms, and there's just no education either. So, we can't really fault them for the lack of education, and also for the adherence to very strict religious guidelines. But it's having that impact on there, where in some areas it's up to 50%. And
where are those areas?
All around. I mean, Congo. It's hard. Like sub-Saharan Africa is really where the epicenter of HIV epidemic, and over there it's it's a heterosexual disease, whereas here in the United States often we see it as a homosexual disease. But
is it still a homosexual disease in the United States?
It's a human disease. It's human immunodeficiency.
But what are the percentages of like homosexual versus IV drug abuse versus heterosexual?
The highest percentage would be the very, very highest percentage would be not specifically homosexual, but we would say that men who have sex with men, because not all of them identify as gay. Men who have sex with men who are of African American descent, who come from a low socioeconomic status, will be at the highest risk of up to 60% of seroconverting to HIV.
So if you're in America, if you're and by the way, my brother's gay, and he's my best friend. He really is. So if you're a black man who has sex with men and are below the poverty status, you're saying 6 in 10 would be test
over
positive?
half. Over
half would be test positive.
Acquire HIV at some point in their lives, and at the current rate that it's going, over 50% of all men who have sex with men, regardless of socioeconomic status or racial background, will be HIV positive.
Half of men who have sex with men in the United States will be HIV
right,
positive?
the current epidemiological statistics. And
Are
a lot
you
of
serious?
Yeah.
50% of men who have sex with men will end up being HIV positive?
It's projected as that, yeah.
In the United States.
And a large reason for that is that, because the medications are so good now, it's so effective, that, the face, as you will, of HIV is not the face of HIV that was in the 80s and the 90s. People are really not dying of it anymore.
So do you think the fact that now it's not this like instant deathsism, like, oh my God, I'm going to die, that's causing them to take riskier behavior?
Right. We're seeing the younger generation between 18 and 25 years old that just doesn't associate that sort of risk or, morbidity with the disease. So,
I can see that because when I'm going through the drive-through at Dairy Queen, I'm thinking, well, they do sell insulin.
The insulin drizzle on your ice cone.
Well, let's change the subject to this. So the bottom line, you're talking to thousands of people who aren't like you, who have the whole population HIV positive 9% practice. So these people, out of the average practice in America is about 1,850 patients. So of those 1,850 patients, how many think are HIV positive that the dentist knows about, and how many are HIV positive they don't know about? And are there any hygiene implications or words of wisdom you could share with the dentist of things they should look for, things they could be better in serving this population?
Documented, it's assumed there's about, and this is one number I'm not totally sure of, but I think it's around 2 million people who are living with HIV in the United States.
So that's not even a full percent, because if there's 330 million people on 2 million, so it's...
Right, it's less than 1%.
So it's less than 1%.
Yeah.
So probably if you have 1,850 patients, you probably have 15 patients, or a dozen.
Yeah, it could be somewhere around there, but it also depends on your geographical location. It's going to be more prevalent in urban areas. It's not very prevalent in the Midwest. You're going to find it in, epicenters of...
So say that again, it's more prevalent where it's not as prevalent in the Midwest.
Just like high urban areas, like, New York City, San Francisco, LA, Miami, the real epicenters of very mixed populations, lower, mixed in with very low socioeconomic status, living in the city, people are very close to each other.
See, I would have thought it would be all Canadian.
They've got their epicenters as well.
Toronto and Montreal.
Toronto, yeah, Montreal especially.
So are there any special or is there any words of wisdom like on treating these people?
Yeah, one of the, and this is more of a clinical issue, but one of the bigger things that I run into that really needs to change is that I conduct a lot of surveys. SurveyMonkey.com is my best friend. I ask hygienists your opinions on different things. One of the things I ask hygienists is, do you use ultrasonics on your HIV positive patients? And an alarming number said that no, they don't. And then I would ask them to provide a reason for that. And the reason largely being that they were taught in school that using an ultrasonic on a patient who has HIV will create an infectious aerosol that contraindicated the whole process. So this is actually not true at all. You can actually look this up on the CDC website. They address creating aerosols in dental practice, and that it is not a vector of transmission for either HIV or hepatitis. So anybody who chooses with this knowledge, and as we know, lack of knowledge in something does not hold up as far as committing malpractice. It's your responsibility to know the concurrent guidelines and regulations. Anybody who's willfully abandoning this highly effective and what I see as necessary treatment for people who, are at risk for periodontal disease and just general prophies, you're committing willful negligence. And, it's just not fair. It's actually a violation of the Americans with Disabilities Act because HIV positive status is a qualification as a disability.
So a problem, I'll just selfishly ask selfish questions for myself. One of the problems I have is you treat them. It seems like they have a lot of problems with yeast infections in the mouth, thrush. What is your go-to armamentarium when they come in and they have a yeast infection in the mouth?
So we are seeing less and less of that because of the great medications that we have now. So I actually see that very rarely in my practice. When we do,
so if you see someone like that, it might be an indicator that they're not getting
treatment?
treatment?
Candidiasis is a clear indicator that the T cell count is dropping and something isn't quite working. And when I see that, I'll literally walk them two doors down to their doctor and knock on the door like, hey, can you come check something out? I've found a candidal infection in the mouth. Maybe we can go over their labs. I'll look at their labs first off because I have access to their full medical records being in a electronic health records facility. So, I'll evaluate that.
So that's a sign that they're off their meds or they're not getting med.
Or maybe that the disease has become resistant to the meds because maybe they're not compliant, with taking it every day. So, even just a few days every month where they miss the medication, the virus can and will become resistant to it. And so they'll have to have genotyping, phenotyping to reassess what that...
Okay, then I want to ask you another question. By the way, thank you so much for that, Daniel, because I've had that problem a couple times this year. Here's another problem. I'm working on an HIV patient.
Right.
We accidentally poke ourselves on any procedure. What's the protocol when I accidentally poke myself but I happen to be working on an HIV positive patient?
It wouldn't be different. Universal precautions are universal. That's the golden rule. So anything that would have happened standard still applies to someone who's HIV positive. Now, when you get a poke with a patient, and you can always have the patient tested, if they don't know they're HIV positive. You can have the patient tested, and then if they come up negative, you make a choice. Do you want to go on post-exposure prophylaxis or not? And usually the doctors will often recommend that you don't because, it can make you very nauseous for a few days. And it's probably not worth both the time, cost, and whatnot to do that. If you have a stick with a person who's HIV positive, they know that, you know that, and so you want to start looking at other things. What was their viral load like? How many copies of that virus is in a milliliter of blood? Usually, somebody who's very compliant can very likely be what we consider undetectable, where it's an extremely, extremely small risk that they can actually transmit HIV to anybody. And so, you can then make another decision. I've been stuck with somebody who's undetectable, and my doctors said, it's your choice if you want to go ahead just to be safe, but chances are very, very unlikely. It's a fraction of a percent that you would even seroconvert. So the chances are extremely minimal. So standard precautions are still, universally standard in being effective.
HIV positive. Any other issues that you think that the dentist should be better on?
So when we consider oral surgery, and one thing that a lot of people are taught to consider before oral surgery is you look at the patient's T cell count because above 200 T cells in a blood sample, indicates, they're not in AIDS status. If you have below 200, you're considered AIDS status. So it's this arbitrary number, but it's actually not really indicative of their health status and their immunological, defense. You want to pay more attention to their absolute neutrophil count to consider how well is this patient actually going to heal. You want to see if their white blood cells are up to par. Is this patient going to be able to clot? Look at their platelet count. So you really need to look at the whole blood value and not just the CD4 count, because the CD4 count is much less significant.
Tell me this: if you're a dentist, and let's say you're in let's say you're in Tulsa, Oklahoma, and you're in a small town, Oklahoma, and you have an HIV patient. Do you think for the patient's best care that dentist should say, hey, is there someone in big old Oklahoma City like you who kind of specializes in HIV positive care, and you should be referring them there? Or do you think, no, that's crazy?
So that's a good question.
99 times out of 100, they're all okay, and everybody should be treating them in the 19,000 towns in America.
Right. There should be, unless we have severe neutrophil count, unless the patient's extremely sick, in which case you probably won't be seeing them anyway. They're probably going to be in the hospital. There's really no contraindication to treating these people as you would anybody else. Now, anybody can be effective at treating an HIV positive patient, and there are resources from the federal government in actually educating both you and your whole team. And it's called the AIDS Education and Training Centers. And what they are is it's a wing of the Ryan White program, which is a program that provides federal dollars for keeping people on medication, keep people healthy, whatnot. So they have centers in every region of the United States where you can just call them up, and they'll provide free continuing education. They'll even take you and dentists and hygienists, and you can go spend 2 days in an ICU center or in an infectious diseases clinic and learn from start to finish everything you ever needed to know about HIV and treating those patients. And it connects you to a network of experts, of infectious disease experts, oral medicine experts. I work with Stephen Abel, who is the biggest name in dentistry when it comes to periodontal disease and whatnot. He's been treating HIV positive patients since the start of the epidemic.
Well, you got to hook me up with him.
Yeah.
Send me an email, howard@dentaltown.com. CC him. What was his name?
Stephen Abel, and he's the Dean of Periodontics at University of Buffalo. Stephen Abel.
Stephen.
Yeah, Abel, A-B-E-L.
A-B-E-L.
Yeah.
Stephen Abel.
So any dental clinician can contact the AETC, the AIDS Education Training Centers, receive continuing education, receive that network where they can even refer patients to them so that they can go find the doctors that they need to see to get comprehensive care.
Okay, I want to switch to a totally different subject. So we'll just start from scratch again. So when I was got out of school and they started doing implants and everything, if they work, they're going to last forever. If you put it in there and it osseointegrates, it's going to work. And all the dental manufacturers that made implants, they were doing all the studies on mainly mandibular anteriors of people who lost their teeth from Streptococcus mutans. And they're telling everybody, and all these dentists believe that there's about a 4% failure rate. That you should expect like a 96% chance. Turns out that we're not just placing implants in the mandibular anterior where the bone is wood. We're putting them in softer posterior mandible. It's like balsa wood. The whole maxilla is like styrofoam. And most of these people lost all their teeth from P. gingivalis. Yeah. And now they're saying periimplantitis is so huge. Most reasonable people are saying about 20% of implants placed are going to fail, and most of them are going to fail from periimplantitis. So a lot of these dentists are looking at this deal, and it's like, okay, I see them losing bone, I see the periimplantitis, but you know what? It's still rock solid, and it's holding in a 3-unit bridge. What are you thinking when you see periimplantitis? Are you scaling around it? Are you ultrasonic in? How are you treating periimplantitis?
Well, maybe I'll address it first. One of the biggest things as hygienists is obviously home care. So the advent of the interdental brush has been way different as far as instead of just flossing, right? That's what we used to always say. Flossing, you use a plastic instrument to get these things to clean up around the periimplantitis. And I actually just learned this year, Howard, that you're not even supposed to use plastic instruments anymore to clean around implants. There's actually special instruments that are supposed to be made. When I was in school, we were also taught that we can't use an ultrasonic around implants, but now they have ultrasonic tips that you can use to clean around implants. I'm not as versed maybe as the other two are about it, but as a hygienist that's been out for a little bit, it's very interesting to see just in the 7 years that I've been out, from pretty much don't touch those implants with anything ever to go ahead and use an ultrasonic with a special tip. It's come a long way in those 7 years.
So what's the special tip? Something that doesn't, what is it, a piece of?
I don't actually know what it's made of. I want to say some sort of a titanium tip as well.
Because the implant's made of titanium.
Yeah, so it won't scratch it. Yeah, some similar metals or something like that.
Do you like any mouthwash? Any touch cycling chips? Any other things?
I don't. I don't care so much for the perio chips and things like that. We do a lot of chlorhexidine, and I heard of a new mouthwash. I want to say it's called Aura Rinse or something like that, and I think the only thing that I've heard negative about the chlorhexidine or the Paradex or whatever is that when the fibers are starting to try and regenerate way down the pockets, that there's a little bit of inhibition there. I don't know all the studies behind it. Daniel's our studies guy. He knows all the stats about everything. But Paradex is pretty much still my go-to with oral irrigation.
Now, what do you guys work together? You guys have a group website or a group blog? Or what do you do?
We got the old boys club of
yeah. I mean, the hygienists. I mean, we get together as male hygienists and talk about hygiene stuff, and we get together probably every couple months
or so. Yeah.
And we'll do like a podcast or something like that. Yeah. Some sort of a YouTube something with Mark Frias and Dental Town, of course, or Hygiene Town. We get together on there a lot.
So do you guys get more on Dental Town or Hygiene Town?
I actually post a lot more in Dental Town, especially, and shout out to the Dental Town politics thread and the loons, all that loony bunch. That's where I spend most of my time. But
on the Dental Town politics.
Oh yeah. It's
seriously.
It's special. Yeah.
Okay, so what that means is, here's what we did. So the 4 things you never talk about is religion, sex, violence, politics. So we have a political thread, but it doesn't show up on the today's active topics. You have to go to leisure and then politics, where it says, if easily offended, please don't answer. So you can't ever complain to me, as someone said in the politics thread, because you specifically went there. And so we allow that. But I never go there. But you're on the politics thread?
Oh, yeah. It's a guilty pleasure.
And what is the politics thread? What are they talking about? Trump and Hillary? Or?
Oh, yeah. Usually that. There was a very big thread that I was very active in after marriage equality for same-sex couples came out. That was very wild and very, very interesting, to say the least. Even Hogo got into it a little bit.
so my brother's gay. So are you gay?
Yeah, I am as well. Yeah.
Were you born that way, or did you choose to be that?
I am pretty sure I was born that way. There wasn't a moment in my life where I looked at a girl.
I know. I couldn't believe my own dad. He used to always ask me, "What's wrong with your brother?" It's like, Dad, we knew. I mean, my brother. I was 17. My brother's born. I mean, me and Dad knew he was gay 10 years before he did. I mean, I'm shocked. I mean, I'm shocked when people think they chose that. I mean, hell, he was the last guy in the family to figure out he was gay. I mean, me and my 5 older sisters and Mom and Dad knew it. And if you didn't know that, you'd have to be crazy. But we're not supposed to talk about those things. So, Linda, same question. I think the fastest growing hygiene issue for the next 10, 20, 30 years is going to be, I mean, every time you turn around, they're placing more implants. I mean, it's just going crazy. And peri-implantitis is getting bigger and bigger and bigger and bigger. Do you see it? How do you treat it? What are your thoughts on peri-implantitis?
I haven't seen many cases, but usually I like to use titanium instruments because I think plastic instruments are quite useless. They're too thick, and so they don't really, you can't get access where you need to.
So what brand of titanium instruments are you liking?
I like PDT instruments.
PDT, what does that stand for?
Paradise.
I thought the Michael Jackson was PLT, Pretty Little Thing.
Paradise Dental Technologies.
Paradise Dental Technology. And where are they out of?
I don't
They're
remember.
out of Missoula, Montana. I think they're.
Missoula, that's American Dental Instruments.
American Eagle. I think they're.
American Eagle. It's the same city.
I think they're either right across town or something like that.
Oh, wow.
I think
It's a different company.
I think the lady that started American Eagle ended up selling it and then starting again with Paradise Dental.
Oh, that's cool.
I did not know
So-
that. Paradise Dental Technology.
PDT, yeah.
Yeah.
PDT. And do you know the lady?
I've met her just the one time at Chicago Midwinter.
Do you ever email her?
No, but I can put you in touch with her if you
Yeah,
want.
yeah.
Absolutely.
Email me how
She has a good story, a great story.
And so you like her instruments because they're titanium?
So she has, I've actually never used them, but she has a Susan Wingrove line of instruments that are specifically for this. And Susan
Is that her
Wingrove
name?
is actually a hygienist that's very reputable about, she's all around
Yes.
lecturing and stuff. Susan, yeah, most hygienists know who she is. So she,
Susan Wingrove. How do you spell Wingrove?
Wingrove. And
Say it
she,
sounds.
yeah, she lectures a lot. I know her and Trisha O'Hare they have like the same speaking company that they work through or
And
whatever.
what's that speaking company?
Hmm.
Yeah, Missoula, Montana. Susan Wingrove.
Yeah, so I know that she paired up with them to create these instruments for basically implants because she speaks a lot about peri-implantitis and things like that.
Nice. So are you seeing it much? Because Linda's saying she's not seeing peri-implantitis much.
I don't see it that much, but we also don't do we don't do any implants in my office. And so if someone has an implant, it's because it was placed somewhere else, and then they came to our office later.
And same question to you. Are you seeing peri-implantitis?
Off and on, yeah. And I don't believe in manual scaling for implants whatsoever. I go straight to the ultrasonic because personally, I don't believe that, if we have a little bit of thread exposure, I don't see how the scalers are really going to get into every aspect of that thread. And, that circumferential area is just really hard to totally clean. So go right in there with the ultrasonic. That cavitation is going to reach in there. It's going to disrupt that biofilm, flush it out at the same time, and give it the best chance for...
I'm gonna ask you all a very weird question. I was the dentist involved when I graduated in '87. I got to Phoenix, Arizona, and the decay rate was crazy. And I got with the dean of the dental school, Jack Dillenberg. We started the Arizona Citizens for Dental Health. Anyway, we got Phoenix fluoridated. And then it expired after 20 years, and we all went back. We got it again. But you know what? I'm having some weird feelings about water fluoridation because when I go to cities like Singapore that have been community water fluoridation forever. And all those dentists my age in their 50s and 60s saying, you know what, in the last 25 years, I've seen decay just plummet. And then you go across the water to Tokyo, where Japan has almost no community water fluoridation. I mean, they don't, it's just not even used. And all the old dentists say the same thing. They say, I've seen decay plummet in their lifetime. And then you see these people from the nutrition circle saying, oh, decay's going up because everybody's switching from water to Coke. But it seems to me that decay is going down not from water fluoridation, but from when the mother is involved with her children's home care. And that if children are the parents are involved with brushing and flossing and getting their teeth clean, that even if they're consuming twice as much sugar as their grandparents did, or whether they're living in a community with water fluoridation or not, decay is coming. It seems to me, because I just did a lecture series in Tokyo, Singapore, Indonesia, Malaysia, Johannesburg, South Africa, and I just continue to see dentists talking about that decay is coming down in all the communities where education is going up, where you have a high literacy rate, and when parents are involved with children, decay is plummeting regardless of diet, Coca-Cola, and water fluoridation. Do you think because I look at myself, I'm fat, I should probably start doing drugs. It'd probably be better for me than my drug is ice cream and cookies and cakes and candies. I've never had a cavity in 30 years, and I do everything wrong. I eat all that sugar stuff. But do you think water fluoridation and do you think water fluoridation is as important as people think it is, or do you really and diet and sugar and pop, or do you think it really is just good old fashioned teaching them how to brush and floss every morning and every night?
I would say that nothing replaces the manual disruption of biofilm. I don't think that you can throw a bunch of stuff at it, but there's still biofilm. It's going to still stay there. I think that the other things are good adjuncts, though. So nutritional counseling, and I think that fluoride is still a good thing. Whether or not I can pinpoint that that's the only reason why it's plummeted, I don't think that that's true. I think what you said earlier about education is probably on par as well.
Another point is that in non-fluoridated areas, they might be having foods and beverages that have been manufactured in a fluoridated area using the local water. So there's that halo effect. So that kind of blurs the issue, really muddies the waters a bit.
I mean, personally, I believe, caries is such a complicated process. It's multifactorial. We need a multifactorial approach. Water fluoridation is just one tool. Manual disruption is another. Fluoridated toothpaste is another. Sugar-free chewing gum to get that mouth cleared out after a sugary snack, it helps. Having that education. I believe there was, maybe you can correct me if I'm wrong on this, but there was a study that just came out of Canada comparing, I think it was Calgary and Toronto. One city had stopped water fluoridation for about 4 years ago, and their caries rate is skyrocketing compared to a very similar city. Yeah.
Oh my God, you got to send me that study.
So
when you go to Dental Town, there's 51 categories. Mm-hmm. One of the categories is health, and the last subcategory in that is water fluoridation. Please start a thread or
sure.
some essay. Okay, so then I want to ask you another question. This is a personal question. I don't want to throw my hygienist under a bridge, but this is something that's always bothered me with hygienists. Little Johnny comes in. He's 6 years old. He's never flossed his teeth once in his life. He comes in for a cleaning, and you prophy his teeth, you floss his teeth, you like put him through an assembly line, and he's out. And I'm thinking, that poor kid, he's been to the dentist 5 times. He's still never flossed teeth line. Do you think it's more important that you prophy, floss, do everything you did, as opposed to like a piano lesson? When I took piano lessons, I would have to play the piano. I didn't just sit there and watch Beethoven play the piano. Do you think it would be more effective if you came in and I said, well, let me tell you, what would be better, A or B? A, Andrew comes in. He's 7 years old. I prophy cup his teeth. I floss his teeth. I give him fluoride treatment. I take 2 bite wings to dentist examiners and I kick him out. Or I hand him a toothbrush and say, Andrew, show me how you brush your teeth. And then he puts on his toothpaste and he just does the front 2 teeth and you spend the whole time talking to him. You start in the upper right, you hear inside, blah, blah. And then, Andrew, let me show me how you floss your teeth. And he can't even do it, or he just does his front teeth. What's better, you putting him through the hygiene assembly line, or are you having a behavior lesson? Because what bothers me is this. I've seen studies that in Americans that say identical twins. One kid had insurance and got a bypass. The other kid did not have health insurance, and this kid particularly started to decide he was going to stop smoking, exercise, and lose weight. The guy who didn't get the $100,000 bypass lived 3.5 years longer than his twin brother who got the bypass, because one changed his behavior and one just got mechanical treatment. I saw this in my life because I was a dentist before you. I don't even want to know what year you were born. I graduated dental school in 87. What year were you born, Andrew?
83.
Oh my God. So how many times did I see someone go to the periodontist, get 4 quadrants to replace curettage, 4 quadrants of surgery, and 3 years later you couldn't tell anything had been done. And then another person could not afford to get 4 quadrants of perio surgery, was scared to death, started brushing and flossing and getting totally into everything, and they looked better. So it's like one guy had the surgery, and I can't tell a difference 2 years later. The other guy didn't get the surgery, and he changed his behavior, and he looks better. So should a hygienist be prophy cupping and flossing a 7-year-old who's never flossed his teeth once in his life? And is that the longest question in the entire world that you've ever been asked?
No, it hasn't. So obviously B would be better, education, and seeing the demonstration. I mean, if we had our choice, we got paid good money to do it, obviously going into homes and helping change behavior in homes would be the way to go. And it wouldn't be just the kids, it'd be the parents making sure that they're doing it every night, every morning, educating them how to educate their children and just having that ripple effect. But I think, on Dental Town and Hygiene Town, there have been multiple threads about doing multiple reevaluations, whether or not insurance covers it or not. Have the patient come back in 3 months after they come back at their high caries risk and see how they're doing. Do they have new decay? Is there plaque all over their teeth? Are their gums all red because they had plaque there earlier, but then they brushed it off right before their cleaning? And I don't want to say it's a controversial thing, but it's hard for us to get insurance companies to pay for it. And so a lot of offices don't do those reevaluations and the behavior modifications like they could. I think that they probably could.
Same question, Linda.
Well, definitely the latter is much more important, but usually it's not reimbursed, so I have to balance the appointment between the education and to also get the work done so that the appointment is productive for the office. So I usually disclose the children and then ask them to brush. I have a mirror on the wall in the operatory over the sink, and I ask them to brush, and I show them how to brush and floss and use xylitol.
Very good. Same question, Daniel.
All right, so this is a pretty interesting topic for me because me and my dental director at work are diametrically opposed on what the priority is for our patients' appointments. You know, they're only 30 minutes. I only have so much time, and often that doesn't leave enough time to do the most thorough prophy ever. I have to do the best I can. And so, you know, I place highest emphasis on patient education. So if I see, you know, something's amiss, I'll tell the patient, I'll give them exactly what you said. Give them a toothbrush, show me what you're doing. Within 5 seconds, I take it away from them. Here's what you're doing wrong. Flossing, they put it in horizontally. Like that, I'm like, okay, you already started wrong. Here's what you do. And so...
And how old are these patients usually?
All ages, from late teens to 80. I've had patients who are, you know, 50, 67 years old, and they'll tell them nobody has ever actually showed me how to brush my teeth in my life. They come back the next visit, not a trace of, you know, significant buildup anywhere. And I've actually been able to track this because I take a PSR recording every visit, which is a periodontal screening report. And, full 128 site probing, but, you don't record specific depths. You're just looking for markers. And I've been able to actually graph this out and compare it to before I started at this clinic because, they always took the PSRs until after I started. And the decline in disease from when I started and put an emphasis on vacation is incredibly significant. And, all the dentists are in agreement, our education is our number one priority. We're public health practice. We have to do things that will benefit the entire population. What benefits the entire population most is make sure they're doing the right thing at home every day.
Okay, I want to ask you another question. There seems to be a lot of good research that fluoride varnishes reduce decay. And if you see a kid come in with high decay rate, fluoride varnish. What are your thoughts about fluoride varnish? Some people claim, I've had dentists tell me, Howard, that's great for the ivory tower, but the bottom line is when you clean someone's teeth, they expect a sexy, white, zesty, clean feeling, and then you lump all this sticky Cavo syrup, fluoride varnish, and they're leaving their office like, my teeth feel horrible. They feel all gummy and clanky, and I just paid you money to leave with a worse feeling than when I walked in. Is that another longest question you've ever been asked, Andrew?
That was shorter than the first one. So, I like fluoride varnish. It's sticky. It stays on there longer. As far as the color, they went from a really, kind of a brownish yellow gross color to a lot of them are either translucent or white colored now. They still feel it. But I think what we're missing on that is one fluoride varnish application every 6 months isn't going to do it. It doesn't. My own personal opinion, it doesn't change it very much. What they need is going to be maybe something they could take it home, like a ClinPro 5000 or a what's the other one, Prevident 5000. Prevident. I'm more partial to ClinPro, but something that they can go home with that has a high concentration of fluoride.
So basically, you're just saying, well then, instead of a fluoride varnish twice a year, that's not going to do it. But if you switch from an over-the-counter toothpaste, Crest or Colgate, that's 1,000 part per million, to a prescription toothpaste that's 5,000 part per million, you see a bigger benefit there.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
And why do you like ClinPro instead of Prevident? Prevident is Colgate?
So,
is that right?
I think it is Colgate.
It's ClinPro.
ClinPro is 3MSP.
Yeah.
3MSP, you're like
Let me
ClinPro.
pass this to you guys talk about ClinPro.
So why do you like ClinPro better?
Well, I think for me it was the tricalcium phosphate is like the remineralizing product. And I know these two are much better at like the compounds behind it. I'm gonna let them talk a little bit more about it because I think we're in agreement on the ClinPro, yes. Right? I think we're in agreement on the ClinPro, so I'll let her talk about the benefits of it. But it is a much better product.
I really like the fluoride varnish, and for patients who are high risk, like with a dry mouth, I apply it every 3 months. And at first the patients would comment their teeth are not smooth, or one guy said to me he feels like when he used to go on benders for a few days. But they realized why it's sticky and why it's so effective. And so most of my patients have come around. I've had maybe 2 who told me, I don't want you to use that again. And then I just use the gel.
What gel?
I usually use a 2% 2% sodium fluoride gel,
12 minute tray.
and yeah,
use
four
a
minutes in a tray, yeah. And I don't remember the brand. We use a few different brands.
I'm a huge fan of fluoride varnish. I think it's the gold standard for fluoride treatments. I believe they do show that just that simple application does give a substantivity of up to 3 months itself, because it'll stick into those little, deepest part of the grooves and whatnot. So, it has a lingering effect. And for my high risk patients, I just have them come in every 3 months, even if it's just I'll double book them just to put that fluoride varnish on and send them back out. It only costs us $1. So, we don't even charge for it because it's just so important and so effective. Also a huge fan of the 5,000 ppm paste. Statistically, there's just nothing more effective. Toothpaste on its own results in like a 33%, caries incidence reduction, while the 5,000 ppm is more like 48%. So it's highly significant in prevention. So I wish it was over the counter.
Well, maybe, do you think it should be, or do you think
it is in Europe?
This is Europe?
Yeah.
It is in Canada too.
Yeah, but I don't trust hygienists from Canada. You know why? Because their favorite sport is hockey, where they just knock each other's teeth out. Linda, how could you be a hygienist and love hockey? Explain that dichotomy.
I actually don't like hockey. I think it's
Right.
like watching paint dry.
I think it's funny. We have the Phoenix Coyotes, and when they're panning, they don't wear their partials during the game. And whenever they're panning the bench, I mean, my God, every one of them is missing their upper 5, 6, 7 teeth. I mean, it's so funny. That's one of my favorite jokes. What has 10 legs and 6 teeth? The bench of the Phoenix Coyotes hockey team. But hey, I just want to tell you that I think you three are legends. And if anybody else is a legend, they're always one of your friends, like some of the other guys you've talked about. I'm big fans of your stuff. It seems like whenever I learn anything in hygiene, it's from one of you three. And I love your articles. I love your YouTube videos. How can people hear more about you, find more about you? How do they get more of you?
Well, we actually just recently started a podcast. I'm not trying to take over your podcast. No. It's called A Tale of Two Hygienists, and it's my friend Michelle and I.
Are you loading it on Dental Town?
We're gonna. I think you and I just talked about that last week, so we're gonna start loading on Dental Town, and then iTunes, of course, and then you just Google me, Andrew Johnston, RDH, and I come up.
Well, it's funny because some people ask, well, can I load my podcast on yours? I mean, come on. I don't think in fear and scarcity. I mean, I think it's crazy, but I don't understand why people would load their podcast on iTunes and not Dental Town, because what most of the there's now like a dozen podcasts on the Dental Town app, and what everyone who's put their podcast out there has told me that their show exploded. Now, the Dental Town app just might be marketing where they get turned on to it, but iTunes is an easy player. Yeah, I've never met a dentist. Well, here's my view on, I've asked some dentists to be on my podcast. They're like, no, I'm with another dental magazine. It's like, what? I mean, I don't even get that, because here's my thing. When I got out of school in 87, when I opened up my house, I ran across the street to meet all my buddy dentists. And half of them closed the door to me and didn't want there to be another dentist, and I was competition and just treating me like, go away. And the other half were like, yeah, we're on the same team. I mean, we don't compete with each other. We compete with VCRs and trips to Disneyland and cruises. And now that I've been practicing 30 years, the dentists who thought in fear and scarcity, they had miserable careers and were never happy. The ones that opened their doors, they had the most fun and all that kind of stuff. And I think dentists don't listen to one podcast. If they're into podcasts, they listen to multiple. They don't read one dental magazine. They listen to tons of dental magazines. And if you're into fear and scarcity, I'm not into it. I'm into hope, growth, and abundancy. Linda, you're amazing. How do my homies hear more about Linda?
Really, my home is Hygiene Town and Dental Town, but I'm also on Facebook and LinkedIn. And that's been really good for me. On LinkedIn, that's where I've got a lot of speaking engagements. So now, since my very first lecture was at Dental Town in 2013, and so now I really enjoy flapping my gums for an audience. And I speak to study clubs around the Toronto area.
And what's the difference between a Hygiene Town and Dental Town, if you're a hygienist? What's the difference?
There's a slightly different focus. I like Dental Town because I get some insight into the issues that dentists face regarding owning a practice and management of staff. And as you said, staff who are not aware, who think they're entitled to a raise just because they've been there for X number of months or years.
Well, if the Earth goes around the sun,
Yeah.
I mean, what more reason do you need for a raise?
Well,
the Earth did go around the sun once.
Well, I told my boss, don't pay me what I deserve, pay me what I need.
So, Daniel, how do they hear more about you?
So I'm pretty active on Dental Town, Hygiene Town, but the next biggest thing that I'm active on is Reddit, which is basically an internet forum where popular topics or articles, it operates on a vote system, are voted to the top of the site, and people just, subscribe to it.
Ryan? Demo that for your old man.
Yeah, Reddit's really huge.
RED
reddit.com.
And what is that? It's a message board?
Yeah, it's basically a message board. It's the biggest message board on the internet right now, and it's just very popular. There's all sorts of sub forums for any particular sort of interest. So you can even
they have dental?
I'm a moderator of both the public and the private dentistry forums, and so in the public one, we have dentists, mostly dentists, and some hygienists. And people, like the random public, will just come and ask questions. 90% of the questions are, do I have dry socket? Which is pretty, irritating to see over and over. But, it's fun. We get to answer questions directly to the public, give people advice. So it's very helpful to people. And then we have the private forum, which is called the Oral Professionals forum, which need to be, somebody... We ask for a picture of your registration or license or something to gain access, and that's just for professional talk there. We have like 350 members who are mostly dentists and some hygienists. And it's much more informal than Dental Town. It's basically people just, talking crap with each other, and it's really fun.
Right on. Well, hey, I want to seriously thank you guys for coming by and doing the show with me for an hour. Thank you so much for coming to this meeting. Thanks for speaking at this meeting. Thank you so much for all that you do for dentistry, for hygiene, for Dental Town, for Hygiene Town. I just think the world of you three.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thank you, Howard.
All right. Thanks, Ryan.